Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Apollo's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and I'm back after a lot of adventures around Morocco, Spain, Crete, to just name a few. So it's been a pretty wild journey. I've been all over the place the past couple months, and part of the reason why I didn't film as much before I left was because I'm sure you're probably wondering about this background behind me. Kind of looks like one of those serial killer bulletin boards. But actually, what this is it's kind of a prop for a new documentary that I have coming out soon in association with the Cousins Brothers. And it is called, maybe I'm not allowed to say it yet. Maybe I'll just wait. But it's going to be really awesome. And it's basically focusing on the women leaders in UFO disclosure, which is, not really a story that's told a lot. So basically, I got these certain very influential women that have done about 20 years or more, give or take, work in the field of ufology or UFO disclosure. And I got all their stories and their background and what they've discovered over the years. So it's going to be really cool. So stay tuned for that. I'm not sure if I can say the name of it yet, so I just won't. But definitely look forward to that. So today, what do I want to get into? Today, we're going to talk about second moon. Yeah, Earth has a second moon coming, which is apparently coming into our orbit on September 29th. That's freaking crazy, you guys. Really crazy. I don't know. That's just like, did we ever think this was ever going to happen? Like, has this happened before? I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure a lot of other people are wondering the same things, but we'll get into that later. Also, I'm going to go over the plasma that has appeared over the pyramids, or has been discovered to be over the pyramids of Giza. I know this news is like maybe about a week late or so, but I still want to cover it because maybe you haven't heard about it yet. If you haven't, then look forward to that because it's pretty crazy. Also, I want to talk a little bit about the Sahara turning green again because I just spent some time there. So it basically happened after I left. So I guess I brought the rain to the Sahara. That was pretty cool. So I'm going to be getting into that. And then also a new UFO or UAP hearing is going to be happening right after the election. That's crazy. So I'm going to be covering all that tonight. Before I get into that, though, I want to remind you all that. Hold on here. So basically, I have been working on a new spear collection of my art, shaman spears, and I'm really excited about that because this new collection is going to be. I've been working on it for a while, and it's basically made out of. It's kind of like Hawaiian themed, and I actually got the bamboo here in Hawaii. So I'm kind of doing a sale, just trying to like weed out the last of my other collections so that I have room to put this one up. So make sure you go on there and check that out. Again, that's shamanspears.com. And I'm going to go ahead and share a little commercial in case you don't know what shaman spears are.
You've felt it, haven't you? The energy around you, pulsing with potential. But sometimes you need a bridge, a way to tap into that power. Introducing Shaman Spears. These handcrafted energy channeling devices are more than tools, they're extensions of yourself. Each bamboo staff is meticulously filled with magnetic and quartz materials designed to amplify your own energy. The sacred symbols passed down through generations act as a conduit, focusing your intentions. Shaman Spears. Not just a wand, not just a spear, but an ancient future fusion. Feel the power course through you.
wondering what that is, I'm holding there. That is a scroll for anyone that gets
Unleash your potential. Visit www.shamanspears.com and claim your shaman spear today.
And so yeah, so basically if you get a spear, then you get a scroll that's kind of a certificate, what it means to have one comes with it, and it's pretty interesting because it kind of has a story. It's almost like an initiation, but you won't know until you get one to see what that is. So again, that's shamanspears.com. All right, so let's get cracking here. Let me go over to the comments. Good to see everyone here tonight. Renee, always here as usual. Love you, Renee. Good to have you here. Dark Hour Paranormal, my birthday brother. So we both had our birthdays on September 10th. It's pretty crazy. We both work with Third Phase of Moon, and we both have birthdays on September 10th. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, good to see everyone here. Okay, Leon the Wise. I know I haven't seen you do a show, or haven't seen you around in a while. Haven't done a show in a while, so I'm back. All right, so let's start with the moon, the second moon that is coming into our orbit. Let's see here. Present. Screen. Okay. Okay, so Earth will get another moon this month, but not for long. This article is from space.com. I really like getting my information when it has to do with space, UFO stuff, anything like that. I like to go to space.com because like they're basically, you know, the most popular, most credible site that is focused on space. So, you know, there's a lot of articles out there, but I'm gonna stick to space.com for this one. So, this month, Earth will grab itself a second moon in the form of a tiny asteroid, 2024 PT5. You know, okay, I'm just going to stop right there because that's interesting. They didn't name the asteroid until just recently, obviously, if it's 2024 PT5. Like, they haven't known about this coming for a while, I don't think. So I'm wondering, you know, if... apparently it hasn't been around before, so that's weird. All right, so moving on. Unlike the moon, Earth's primary companion, which has accompanied our planet for around 4 billion years, this new mini-moon will stick around for just 2 months before it heads back to its home in an asteroid belt trailing our planet and orbiting the sun. Weird. A team of scientists well-versed in the study of so-called mini-moon events identified the forthcoming gravitational capture event. They spotted the peculiar dynamic properties of 2024 PT5 as they routinely monitored newly discovered objects for potentially interesting behavior. The object that is going to pay us a visit belongs to the Arjuna asteroid belt, a secondary asteroid belt made of space rocks that follow orbits very similar to that of Earth at an average distance to the sun of about 93 million miles. Research-led author and Universidad Complutense de Madrid professor Carlos de la Fuente Marcos told Space.com. Objects in Arjuna asteroid belt are part of the near-Earth object population of asteroids and comets. Marcos explained that some of these objects in the Arjuna asteroid belt can approach Earth at a close range of about 2.8 million miles. Under those conditions, the geocentric energy of the object may grow negative, and the object may become a temporary moon of Earth. This particular object will undergo the process starting next week and for about 2 months, he added. It will not follow a full orbit around Earth. You may say that if a true satellite is like a customer buying goods inside a store, objects like 2024 PT5 are window shoppers. Okay, and so I'm just going to hold that there. I'm going to come back to that. Let me just remove that for a second. So I feel like and I'm going to get back to that article because I know there's some more information, but I already looked it over and I've been reading a lot of articles on this over the past few days. It was weird is like we didn't really hear about this until like I never saw any news about this until a few days ago, right? Like, did anyone else know about this happening before this? Like, I don't think anyone really knew. It's really weird. And I feel like there's a lot of implications of this that people aren't really asking, or like none of these articles that I've been reading are addressing that I want to know. And okay, maybe like the moon won't affect us, the second moon won't really affect us in certain ways just because it's so small. But like the main two questions I have about this is first of all, the moon affects different things on our planet, right? It affects the tides in the ocean, and it affects the cycles that women have every month. And those are just two things that are major. And what if a second moon comes into our Earth's orbit or becomes a second moon to our Earth, then what does that mean? Like, what are the implications of that? I mean, could this possibly cause some crazy changes in the tides? Or could this have women going through a lot more with their time of the month than they normally would be? I don't know. Like, I feel like no one's asking these questions. And maybe, obviously it looks a lot different than the moon. I don't think it's not gonna be reflecting like the sun. Like that's something that they're not talking about either, is like, okay, I guess it's just an asteroid. Like what makes the moon, like our moon right now, like reflect the sunlight down to us? Like I think maybe it's just the way that the surface has been catching the light and reflecting it for so many, millions, billions of years, whatever, that caused it to reflect the sun in that way. But like, is this asteroid going to be able to reflect the sun at all? Probably not, I'm assuming. But I'm just wondering if like, it at least even can have a small change or a small effect on the tides on the planet. I'm really curious to know that. No article really seems to address that. I mean, what if it could be a major catastrophe? No one's really talking about that. But and also is saying that this asteroid belt that's coming in, right? It's coming from this asteroid belt that's like kind of nearby, but it's not. I get from what I read here, I think they're saying it's not the main asteroid belt that's going through our solar system. It's a different one. So I'm wondering if maybe there's going to be a lot more activity. I know there's kind of like every 3,600 years or so, Earth kind of goes through this part in the universe as it's moving through the universe where it kind of starts. It's almost like the Earth is like crossing, like a person crossing a 6-lane highway and trying to not get hit because there's so many asteroids coming through. And from what Graham Hancock and different writers and scientists have been saying, like we're kind of entering that period now. And so I think that's why we're having a lot more activity than we were in recent centuries in regards to asteroids. So very interesting and a little scary for sure. But what's also interesting is that, we've been developing, I know China and the USA have been working very hard on developing technologies that can supposedly, these space lasers, they'll incinerate asteroids if they come too close to Earth. And I'm not sure how far along they've got with that technology, but it seems like, they've done a lot of work on it. And wouldn't that be interesting if our planet had an event like that, where all the countries in the world could come together, all the top scientists, and do something, work on a project together to keep an asteroid from like coming to Earth. I know it sounds like obviously that would be a bad thing if that happened, but it would also be kind of amazing to see all the countries around the planet, all these foreign nations kind of coming together to work on a project like that. So I think that's really cool. So let me continue this here. Oh. Okay. Okay, so this looks like a kind of a diagram of the asteroid here, or where it's coming in from. I'm not really sure how to read that. Let me get these pop-ups out of the way here. Okay, here it says a calculation of asteroid 2024. Freaking ads. 2024 PT5's position around Earth as it temporarily is captured and becomes a mini moon. So I guess that's that there. So mini moon events come in two flavors. The first are long episodes during which the asteroid completes one or more revolutions about our planet, with these gravitational engagements lasting one or more years. The second type of episodes are short engagements in which the small body does not complete one full revolution. These temporary captures can last just days, weeks, or even months. Marcos explained that in order to become a mini moon, an incoming body has to approach Earth at a close range of around 2.8 million miles. Under these conditions, the geocentric energy can become negative and the object becomes temporarily bound to Earth. Short mini moon events like this forthcoming one, in which the small body, in this case an asteroid, acquires negative geocentric energy for weeks or a few months, are relatively frequent, with several events happening per decade. Okay, so that answers my question from earlier. I thought this was something that has like not really happened before. So okay. So I guess it's not really that crazy. It's still interesting though. Long capture episodes, on the other hand, are rare, with Earth experiencing one around every 10 or 20 years. Oh wow, so there's still like a thing where we get a second moon for a long time. That's crazy. So the cause of the ejection of these objects from around Earth are gravitational disturbances caused by the sun. 2024 PT5 has fulfilled its role as a mini moon. It will return to a sun-centered orbit, remaining part of Arjuna asteroid belt. Unfortunately, during its occupation around Earth, 2024 PT5 won't be visible to the vast majority of skywatchers. The object is too small and dim for typical amateur telescopes and binoculars. However, the object is well within the brightness range of typical telescopes used by professional astronomers. I think that's about it there. So I guess it's not that crazy, but we'll see. See what happens. Okay, so just going back to the comments here. Leon the Wise says, great show thus far. Glad you're back. Thanks, Leon. Appreciate it. Okay, so next I want to get into the plasma that was discovered by Chinese scientists over the Great Pyramids, the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. This is, I don't know, I'm sure maybe a lot of you have seen this in the news already. It's not really, it's about a week in the news cycle, but this is pretty insane, and I wanted to go over this with tonight's show. Okay, here we go. So this is an article out by Popular Mechanics. Mysterious plasma bubbles have appeared over the pyramids. China caught these strange atmospheric phenomena on advanced radar, but they aren't aliens, so they claim. For the first time, China's powerful low-altitude, long-range ionospheric radar, LARID, located on Hainan Island, has detected plasma bubbles above the Midway Islands and perhaps more ominously, the pyramids of ancient Egypt. But let's just get this one out of the way off the bat. It's not aliens. How do they know that? Okay. Instead, these well-known space weather anomalies are called equatorial plasma bubbles, and they occur in the region of Earth's atmosphere known as the ionosphere. Here, the sun's UV light knocks electrons loose from atoms, forming a diffuse layer of ions extending from 50 to 400 miles above the surface. However, sometimes pockets of density irregularities form in the ionosphere and lead to a depletion of ions, which can significantly impact radio and satellite-based communication. So, obviously that could be a huge problem if planes are flying over the pyramids. I know I flew over the pyramids before, because I saw them looking down from the window. So I think planes fly over the pyramids all the time, so that's kind of scary. Um, but what's interesting about this, and I'm still going to continue on here, is there's so much to plasma research. Plasma is a really, really interesting thing. I mean, what do you call it? Hold on, let me just real quick. I'm just gonna look up what is plasma to give you the best description. And I actually have this great book by an author friend of mine about plasma that I want to start reading soon so I can have a better idea of things. Plasma is a state of matter along with solids, liquids, and gases that is made up of positively charged ions and negatively charged electrons. It's known as a fourth state of matter. Plasma is created when a neutral gas is heated to a point that the electrons are freed from the atoms or molecules. This process is similar to how liquid boils and turns into a gas when heated. Plasma is found in many places in the universe, including stars, nebulae, auroras, lightning, and neon signs. And so that's what's crazy about plasma, really, in my opinion, is that basically it's like the building blocks of life, right? Like it's basically, what makes up the entire universe. It's like this other, not really quite matter, it's fourth form of matter, it says. But what's really interesting is there's a lot of paranormal experiences people have in association with plasma. Actually, one of my most interesting paranormal experiences was associated with what I believe to be a ball of plasma, which was neon bright green. I saw in the desert, and it came down to me, and I saw it with my eyes. It wasn't like, oh, I saw it through a camera. Like, I saw it with my eyes. People try to say, like, maybe that was a ball of lightning, but there were no storms when I was there, so it doesn't really make sense. And a lot of people say that they've had experiences with plasma where, like, basically it would be like a ball of light or something like that coming in and then transforming into something else, like some sort of like being or ship or whatever. There's like tons of accounts of this. So, it's really interesting stuff. So I'm gonna go on here a little bit more. This is a much different technique for tracking these anomalies than NASA's. The agency relies on global scale observations of the Limb and Disk Gold mission, basically a satellite appendage attached to a commercial satellite to track potential EPBs across the Earth. While Gold often detected bubbles during periods of intense disturbance, such as solar storms and volcanic eruptions, the mission detected bubbles during relatively quiet atmospheric moments as well, and showcased that there's much more to learn about these mysterious bubbles. The South China Morning Post originally reported the story and veered into the radar's potential military applications. Due to its low resolution, LARID cannot be used to detect military targets such as aircraft or warships. However, according to reports from official Chinese media, over-the-horizon military radars using similar technologies have been widely deployed by the Chinese military and have detected targets including F-22 stealth fighter jets. Okay, so I'm just gonna skip those here. Okay, so however, our scientific understanding of these bubbles is still lacking, as different techniques in tracking them only tell us certain details about the phenomenon. So while China's LARID system might show some sort of military promise, its potential benefit to science could even surpass any battlefield advantage. So I feel like that article kind of like said a lot without really saying that much there. Abundance manifester and value provider says horse rising or sunset. I like that. That's pretty cool. Obviously there's a lot of electromagnetic activity or piezoelectric activity coming from the pyramids because what they're like basically made of granite quartz, the stones, and then the insides of them are like it's built over I believe it was three intersecting underground rivers. And I mean, really, basically, the way that they're built, it's just kind of like shooting up all this piezoelectric energy up into the atmosphere all the time. So it makes sense that there would be these plasma bubbles appearing over the pyramids there. That's pretty cool. Frank Monday here says, I've seen plasma spheres over the Drum Tower in Beijing. Wow, very interesting. And also, Frank says there was tons of celestial activity over China the last couple of weeks, shutting down airports and observed by many. Seems to happen every autumn, might be spiritual. That's pretty crazy. You say that because, yeah, I think we covered that a lot I remember covering that with Blake and Brent on Third Phase of Moon over the past month on various shows. One phenomena in particular was the one with the seven suns. I don't know if any of you out there have seen that one, but that one was pretty crazy. And then I think there was some more just UFO type sightings in China over the past month. So definitely very interesting. And I'm wondering, what China is doing with this technology, like why they want to, use this radar technology to find these plasma bubbles. Like, what are they searching for? It kind of makes me think of the three-body problem. I don't know if any of you have seen that, but I highly, actually, I'll have to say I don't like the TV series. I hate it. I didn't get that far into it, but I read the book, and the book is really incredible. So, yeah. Oh, Kelly here says it would be cool to capture plasma balls on camera. This is where, like, I feel like a lot of people, they take a picture and then they see this, like, light refraction from the sun in their camera, and they're like, oh, I saw it. There's, like, this ball of light, like, plasma that I captured. So, like, a lot of people say that, but I think, a lot of people are, like, not capturing it really. But then I've seen, like, a lot of, people possibly capturing it. And obviously, there's scientists that are working on it all the time, working with it. So obviously, they've taken pictures. I don't know if how exactly. I guess you're right about that though. Like it doesn't really like show up necessarily most of the time. But like I said, what I saw in the desert about 10 years ago, it was a ball of light, ball of plasma. It was glowing like neon green. So I don't know. I could see what that looked like, but I think maybe sometimes you can see plasma, sometimes you can't, depending on like the makeup of it. Maybe it has, because what's crazy about it, I wish I could remember the details of this scientist that explained this to me recently, but there's something where like they can get turned on, like they'll be turned off where they're like not lit basically, and then there's something that can get activated in them where they like switch on, and it's like they create their own light. So that's what's crazy about it. And I know, like, me explaining it right now, it sounds like drunk history or something. So, but look that up yourself. I know that's something that's actually really fascinating about that. So, moving on now. Let me see here. What do I want to get to next here? Okay, so apparently there's going to be a new UFO hearing happening. Senate Armed Services Committee. So this time it's the Senate Armed Services Committee to hold a UFO hearing, and apparently it's happening right after the election in November. That's crazy. So I actually haven't read this article yet, so I'm going to go over this with you guys right now. And this is from The Hill. The Senate Armed Forces Committee is looking to hold a UFO hearing after the November elections. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand office confirmed to The Hill. The hearing announcement follows an increase in sightings of what's officially known as unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP, including one purportedly near Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. It would also come more than a year after an explosive hearing in July 2023 when three former Pentagon officials testified about their experience with or sightings of UAP, warning that a lack of information on the phenomena could pose national security risks. Now, Gillibrand, who in 2022 helped start the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, created to assess reports of UAPs, wants a progress update on the office's work. It's a priority for me. I think it's very important that we continue to make things publicly available, Gillibrand earlier this month told Matt Laszlo's DC Ask a Poll podcast. She wants a progress report on how many unidentified aerial phenomena we've assessed and analyzed, and for the office to give examples of what we have identified and give examples of what we haven't identified. I think that's something that's been left out of the last ones, if I'm correct. I feel like a lot of times they're not really talking about what hasn't been identified. They're just kind of bringing out what has been identified. So I don't know. Interesting. Gillibrand, who chairs the subcommittee under the Senate Armed Services Committee on Emerging Threats and Capabilities, added that she wants AARO to continue to build credibility. Her office confirmed Tuesday to The Hill that there will be a hearing likely in November. And last summer's headline-making House hearing on UAP, during which former Air Force intelligence officer David Grush's alleged the government was hiding technology of foreign or even extraterrestrial origin. Representative Tim Burchett requested the Inspector General for the intelligence community to investigate the claims further. But lawmakers have been frustrated with any progress since then, with Burchett suggesting in April that he believes the U.S. government was involved in a cover-up of information on UAP. A Pentagon report on UAP released in March concluded that there is no evidence the U.S. has reverse-engineered extraterrestrial technology, pushing back on claims that it's hiding off-world spacecraft. And so, that could be the case. It could be the case, like maybe the U.S. government just developed technology on its own without the help of any outside sources or forces, and they developed technology, and they're pretty good at that. But, I think maybe, I don't know, I feel like there's been some outside involvement, some outside inspirations. What's the word for it? So I don't know. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Tell me in the chat. I want to hear what you think about this. But, it's interesting. They're going to have this right after the election. Let's hope everyone makes it to the election safely this time. Because it's looking like, it's been a crazy year. It's been a crazy year so far. I'm not going to get too much more into that, but I know we've all seen that. So moving on to, let's see here. Okay, so the Sahara has been turning green again. And I have a couple articles that are kind of in relation to this because it's really interesting. Because first of all, every so many thousands of years, the precession of the equinox basically like the Earth, it has this wobble on its axis where every 3,000 or so years, we basically kind of move to a different pole star because of the way that the Earth's axis is shifting. And they call it the precession of the equinox because on the equinox at a certain time, every so many thousands of years, that we switch to a different age because when the sun rises on the equinox, it rises under a different sign, a different constellation in the sky than it had been for the 3,000 years or so before that. So I know that's a lot to take in, but basically this causes the Earth to go through these changes naturally. And where the equator once was is going to be kind of somewhere else because of just the way the Earth is moving. I'm not talking about pole shift here. I'm talking about just the way the Earth is moving on its axis. It's going to be a little closer to the sun, a little further away in places where it hasn't been before. And it's just a natural thing that happens. So, a lot of people are saying, we've been in the age of Pisces for the past few thousand years, and we're supposedly moving into the age of Aquarius. Like, it's kind of already been happening, but it's like a slow kind of shift. But we're basically in that now. So I'm wondering if this means that the Sahara is going to be green again, like it used to be thousands of years ago. I think the last time it was really green, truly green, was 5,000 years ago, maybe less. And that at that time, the pyramids in Egypt were, that was like basically in a jungle. The Nile, where the pyramids were, that whole area, it was a jungle. So it's pretty crazy. It's crazy to think about. And we just saw this phenomenon change. It's kind of funny because it was like I actually spent the last month in Morocco in the Sahara, had some wild adventures, and really got to experience it. And it's kind of unbelievable, seeing this because, when I was there, it was like 112 degrees every single day. It was insane. And, the Sahara is no joke, but look at this. This is crazy. This is like unheard of. So this is from CNN. An unusual shift in the weather has turned the Sahara green. There isn't much green in the Sahara Desert, but after an unusual influx of rain, the color can be seen from space, creeping into parts of one of the driest places in the world. Satellites recently captured plant life blooming in parts of the typically arid southern Sahara after storms moved there when they shouldn't. It also caused catastrophic flooding, and scientists say a world warming due to fossil fuel pollution is making both more likely. Okay, well, I think it's probably a lot more the factor I mentioned earlier. They always want to spin it, CNN, don't they? But continuing on here. Rainfall north of the equator in Africa typically increases from July through September as the West African monsoon kicks into gear. The phenomenon is marked by an increase in stormy weather that erupts when moist tropical air from near the equator meets hot, dry air from the northern portion of the continent. The focus of the stormy air, known as intertropical convergence zone, shifts north of the equator in the northern hemisphere's summer months. Much of it sags south of the equator during the southern hemisphere's warm months. But since at least mid-July, this zone has shifted further north than it typically should, sending storms into the southern Sahara, including portions of Niger, Chad, Sudan, and even as far north as Libya, according to data from NOAA's Climate Prediction Center. As a result, these portions of the Sahara Desert are anywhere from twice as wet to more than 6 times wetter than they should be. Okay, so I'm just gonna end that there because a lot of it's just, talking about climate change and things like that. But, I think the Earth, obviously humans, we are messing with the Earth, but I think there's also a lot to do with natural cycles that our planet goes through all the time. It's been going through them for millions and billions of years, and it's going to keep going through them. And maybe there'll be a change where the Sahara will become, more of a jungle type environment again, and then places like, I don't know, like Southern California, places like that might become a cool place, or like a freezing place. Who knows? Like maybe the Earth, is just going to be shifting in a different way again. So. All right, so I actually had another article that kind of goes with that one, which is kind of interesting. Let me see here. Okay, so the article I just read about the Sahara turning green, that basically has been happening over the past like 2 weeks. That article was from like a couple weeks ago, I believe, a week ago. But this just came out a few days ago. the controversial plan to turn a desert green. So this is let me just get into this. Thijs van der Hoven's ambitions are nothing if not grand. The Dutch engineer wants to transform a huge stretch of inhospitable desert into green, fertile land teeming with wildlife. So I wanted to get into this kind of topic tonight because I don't know, I'm a huge Dune fan. And one of the main things of aspects of Dune, which they don't really talk about in the movies, it's kind of more in the books. You have to read the books. But they really basically the reason why Frank Herbert wrote the Dune series was because he was really inspired by this journalism project that he had in Northern California, where he was sent out with this team of scientists and to just record what they were doing. And basically, this team of scientists were trying to terraform the earth in that area where because the sand from the dunes up in Northern California on the one kept blowing over the roadways and it was causing road closures all the time. I think this was back in the 60s or something like that, 50s. And so basically, it just kind of inspired him to write the whole Dune series because so basically what these scientists did was they started planting like shrubbery and things like that over the dunes, and it caused the sand to stop blowing over the roadways. So that's what caused Frank Herbert to become inspired to write Dune. And if you read the book, not really as much in the movies, but in the books, like the main focus really is one of the main aspects of the story is like the Fremen, the desert people, nomadic desert people, are basically trying to re-terraform the planet of Arrakis. And they're doing all these things to collect water and try to start little ecosystems in different places. And they actually succeed. Like once you get like later in the series, like, the whole planet has transformed and the sandworms aren't there anymore. Because the sandworms aren't there anymore, the people aren't able to like use spice to like navigate through the universe anymore because, they needed that. So kind of crazy. So like basically, I've always said like, why aren't we doing more projects like this here on the planet like that? There's so many ways that we could like bring water, hollow out canals and bring water into the desert. We have the technology to do these kinds of things, and I feel like humans aren't really reaching their full potential with that. So I'm gonna finish reading this article here. So this scientist, his sights are set on Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, an arid triangle-shaped expanse that connects Africa with Asia. Thousands of years ago, it was bursting with life, he said, but years of farming and other human activity have turned it into a barren desert. Van der Hoven is convinced he can bring it back to life. He has spent years fine-tuning an initiative aimed at restoring plant and animal life to roughly 13,500 square miles of the Sinai Peninsula, an area slightly bigger than the state of Maryland. The goal to suck up planet-heating carbon dioxide, increase rainfall, and bring food and jobs to local people. He believes it is the answer to a slew of huge global problems. We are destroying our planet in a way which is scary, he told CNN. The only holistic way out of this situation is with large-scale ecological regeneration. So-called desert regreening projects are not new, and this is one of the number around the world seeking to transform arid landscapes. Many aim to halt desertification, the creeping degradation of dry lands, a phenomenon the United Nations calls a silent, invisible crisis that is destabilizing communities on a global scale. But the concept is also controversial. Critics say transforming deserts is unproven, enormously complex, and could negatively affect water in ways we cannot predict. And I'm just gonna stop there. Like, that's kind of interesting. Like I was just saying earlier, like in Dune, obviously it's a fictional story, but it's like once they transformed the desert, it changed. Like the sandworms weren't there anymore. Certain things that would have lived in the desert weren't there anymore. Like new varieties of life started coming out. there was a water on Arrakis again. It probably caused a lot of flooding. So this is sort of the same kind of thing they're saying, and that's really interesting because obviously, could it affect the world negatively, and also maybe this is something that happened before, like maybe in the past, like ancient people, like 10,000 years ago or so, started doing things like this, and then all of a sudden they caused a giant global flood to happen because of what they were doing, messing with nature. So who knows? Kind of interesting. So I'm going to continue with this. The birth of the plan. Vander Hoven's background may seem unlikely for someone intent on saving the world. As a hydraulic engineer at Belgian dredging company DEME, he worked on projects including building artificial islands in Dubai. But in 2016, the course of his career changed when he was pulled into a venture to help the Egyptian government restore shrinking fish populations in Lake Bardawil, a saltwater lagoon in northern Sinai. Separated from the Mediterranean by a narrow sandbar, it used to be more than 100 feet deep, but is now less than 10 feet deep in parts, as well as hot and salty. Within a few weeks, Vander Hoven devised a plan to open up the lagoon by creating tidal inlets and dredging tidal gullies to get more seawater flowing through, making it deeper, cooler, less salty, and more full of marine life. But the more he researched, the bigger he wanted to go. Scanning the terrain in Google Earth, he saw the outline of a network of now dried up rivers crisscrossing the Sinai like blood vessels, suggesting that this land was once green. He pored over weather models and ecological studies and started to see connections. He could use the sediments dredged from Lake Bardawil to help regreen the surrounding area. They are salty, but they hold very many nutrients and minerals, which you need to start restoring the land, he said. He would start with wetlands around the lake, expanding them to lure the birds and fish. Then he would go higher in the region's mountains, pumping in the lake's sediments and layering them to create soils where they could grow different varieties of salt-tolerant plants. These would help revitalize the soils, Vander Hoven said, reducing salt levels and making the land able to support a larger array of plants. Vander Hoven's central idea is that adding vegetation to the landscape will mean more evaporation, more clouds forming, and more rain falling. It could even change the winds, as greening the region can bring back moisture-laden flows of air, he said. This could completely change the weather patterns. None of this would be quick. Vander Hoven's estimates is it would take 5 to 7 years to fully revitalize the lake, and then between 20 and 40 for the wider regreening. It's really nature telling us the speed, he said. Restoration on a planetary scale. Vander Hoven's idea might sound wildly ambitious, but it's been done before. As he was feverishly planning the Sinai project, he came across the film Green Gold, made by the cameraman turned ecologist, John Liu, which documents a huge desert regreening project in the Los Plateau in northern China. The region, nearly the size of California, has been heavily degraded by years of overuse and overgrazing. With sparse vegetation and covered in thin ochre-yellow soil, is very prone to erosion. In an attempt to transform the land, China's government and the World Bank launched a large-scale regreening program in the 90s, planting trees and shrubs and implementing grazing bans. In the decades since, the Los Plateau has flourished. Parts of the land are now carpeted in green. Soil erosion has reduced and less sediment flows in the region's Yellow River, lowering the flood risks. And so I guess that's what it looked like before, and that's what it looks like now. And so that was just since the 90s? That's not very long. Okay, so I guess I'm just going to end the article there. Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm just nerding out on the whole terraforming aspect a little bit because I think that would be really cool. So I'm just looking at the comments here. Kelly here says, reforesting in California, Texas, and Africa is an in thing. However, people say it takes away from desert creatures. That's so true. There's so many creatures out in the desert. It's crazy how like life evolves in these different kinds of places. So, if things were terraformed, in these different places and re-terraformed, then, it's not really so good for those little creatures. So that would be sad. And Kelly also says geysers going off in Africa and the Middle East could help. I'm not really sure what exactly you mean by that. Oh, and by the way, speaking of geysers, I guess it's not really a geyser, but the Kilauea here in Hawaii actually just went off recently in the last week or so. It's been going off. I guess it's just kind of like a small eruption, and it's like paused today, but it might keep going more. So pretty crazy. I actually haven't seen the lava here with my own eyes yet, so I hope to see it soon. I actually just read the Michael Crichton book, Eruption. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but basically, Michael Crichton, he's the one who wrote Jurassic Park. And so he like passed away, I think it was like 5 years ago or something. But James Patterson basically, so he had all the notes for his book, which is about actually set here on the Big Island where I'm at. And it's about a volcano going off here on the Big Island, the Mauna Loa. And so his wife actually took his notes, all the notes he gathered for his story, which is like, the genre is actually called, what's the word I'm looking for? Techno sci-fi, I think, or no, techno thriller. Pretty cool name. But apparently James Patterson is really, he writes a lot in that kind of genre too. So Michael Crichton's wife gave James Patterson all of his notes and everything that he was gathering together for this book. And so James Patterson ended up putting it out. So it's pretty crazy. But yeah, so that's actually going off right now here. So pretty cool stuff. All right, so I think that's about it for tonight's show, you guys. And let me just remind you all to please, please check out my art, which is over at shamanspears.com. Again, I have some recent work out, and this is all fairly new. But I have a new collection that's going to be coming out soon, so kind of pricing everything down a little more here so I can get rid of some of the things in my store to prepare for the new collection to come out. So if you want to check these out, make sure you go do that at shamanspheres.com. I do next day shipping on all orders, and they all come with a kind of special secret scroll that talks about what it means to have one. So make sure you check that out. And also, I forgot to mention this earlier, since before I left for the trip I've been on, or the past month and a half, the whole entire Battle for Disclosure series has been published. It's a comic book series that I worked on with Blake Cousins and Brent Cousins. Brent did the artwork. Me and Blake did a lot of the writing. I kind of did a lot of the writing mostly in the last couple. And then, we all did the publishing process together. So it's kind of like a joint operation. And there's 4 books in the series, and it's pretty crazy because some of it actually gets into events that are happening politically right now, which are very similar. It's almost like part of these books predicted it, but it's kind of about basically the battle for disclosure, the battle for UFO disclosure. So definitely go check that out. The entire 4-book series is on Amazon Prime or Kindle. You can go get it on Kindle, or you can get a paperback. It's kind of more fun if you get a paperback because you can hold it in your hands. You have it forever. It might be worth a lot later. Who knows? So definitely go check that out. That is on Amazon. All right. Thanks everyone for joining me tonight. And until next time. Oh, sorry. I'm going to hold on for a second here. I want to thank 100 years from now for the super sticker. Thank you so much for that. Very much appreciate it, my friend. All right, thanks everyone. Hopefully I'll be back. I might just do a show again within the next week or so here. So stay tuned. See you all again soon. Until next time. Over and out.